I know this news is a few days old, and I heard about it when it dropped, but Nintendo going after piracy, that's just a good thing, and I didn't think there was much else to it. But I just found out about the numbers behind it, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. So let's break down Nintendo suing Nintendo Switch emulator Yuzu for facilitating piracy at a colossal scale. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends, and comment your thoughts down below. So Nintendo is saying the emulator is all about piracy, and they've got the numbers to back it up. Who knew that people breaking TOS to hack consoles were being dishonest the entire time? So if you've ever seen a Steam Deck playing Legend of Zelda, chances are it was using the Yuzu emulator. Now Nintendo has sued the developers of Yuzu in US federal court. That's significant over like, oh, this is just, Japan cracking down on hacking some more, with the intent of squashing Yuzu for good. In the lawsuit, Nintendo alleges that Yuzu violates the anti-circumvention and anti-trafficking provisions of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, as well as accusing the creators of copyright infringement. It alleges Yuzu is primarily designed to circumvent several layers of Nintendo Switch encryption so its users can play copyrighted Nintendo games. Yeah, emulation is used almost exclusively for piracy, and again, that just goes back to the whole dishonesty thing. 99% of people with Nintendo Switch emulators are using it to pirate games or hack and cheat, or both. Shut it down. People say that they want the quality of life that is brought with the emulator and, 4K and 60 FPS and all these other things Nintendo Switch is incapable of, but at the end of the day, they're also using pirated ROMs to engage with that content in almost every case. The company not only is asking for the courts to stop Yuzu in its tracks with a permanent injunction, it also wants to take away domain names, URLs, chat rooms, social media presence. Let's go, Nintendo! And even seize and destroy its hard drives to help wipe out the emulator. And Nintendo wants money and damages. Bro, yes. I was really hopeful years ago when Nintendo started cracking down on people hacking their consoles because it became illegal in Japan, and I even said like, yo, I hope this is something that Nintendo uses to then take a more global approach to stopping emulation, hacking, and piracy, and we're seeing it. That's awesome. So yeah, like this is going to be a great thing. Wait, aren't emulators legal? Well, yes and no. While there's legal precedent that suggests it's okay to reverse engineer a console and develop an emulator that uses none of the company's source code, those cases are a quarter century old or more, and it gets trickier because now we have modern encryption with multiple layers and then copyright BIOSes that Yuzu and other modern emulators require to run. So yeah, people have defaulted to these super old cases to be like, see, emulation is legal, I'm not doing anything wrong, even though the copy of the game they have is pirated, and that's what makes it illegal, and the only reason they have their emulator is to run those pirated games. Same thing for like their downloaded emulators on their computer and stuff, and the ROMs that they have from that. But now, we do have this modern nuance that is ignored in the conversation. People are like, emulation's fine, it has legal precedent, haha, get wrecked, idiot. Actually, no. And Nintendo is like, yeah, we've been working on a case and we got it. The Dolphin emulator for Nintendo Wii and GameCube got enough hot water to abandon its plan to launch on Steam when it was revealed that Dolphin ships with Nintendo Wii's common key to help circumvent copyright protection on Wii games. Again, who would have guessed that people stealing games and cracking consoles would be dishonest? Nintendo doesn't allege that Yuzu includes any such keys though. Yuzu takes a bring your own BIOS approach, expecting users to lift their own BIOSes and keys off of a hacked Nintendo Switch using a loophole that Nintendo eliminated in newer models. So again, like Nintendo showing how much they don't want this to happen, or more likely, downloading a pirated one. And that's really what it always ends up with for this kind of emulation and hacking your console. It's about piracy. So instead, Nintendo is arguing that Nintendo is knowingly facilitating piracy at a colossal scale. And then we get into the numbers. Nintendo points out in its complaint that Yuzu advertises compatibility with specific copyrighted Nintendo games like Xenoblade, and this image is from the Nintendo lawsuit. Yeah, that's not a good look. Definitive edition running on release, and then that's like also for the Patreon support. So paywalling the theft of Nintendo content on release. If Nintendo can prove that Yuzu is primarily designed to give people access to official Nintendo Switch games and has no other real use, Yuzu would be in trouble. DMCA section bans products primarily designed or produced for the purpose of circumventing a technological measure that effectively controls access. The important thing is that Nintendo is bringing the case as a DMCA circumvention claim, says a business attorney who hosts the Virtual Legality podcast. He tells me that while emulators are broadly legal, if engineered correctly, the DMCA also lets Nintendo focus on whether the emulator was only designed to break Nintendo's control over its games. There is a real chance for them to win as the court tests things like the effectiveness of the measure and just how the emulator was created. And I'm down with that. That, you know, when I heard about the hacking being illegal in Japan and then that one dude actually getting fined for selling hacked Pokemon, it's like, ooh, this is great. This is progress. But then you can't immediately just try to take that to the courts and get every emulator shut down. So as piracy has become more and more of an issue, as more and more people hack, as there's more cheating in games, and all of this other circumvention that's going on, you wait for the big oversteps. You wait for the Patreon advertisement that's like, hey, you can do this to steal Nintendo games on release. And then all the other things in like seeing a larger and larger scale, because the more damage that is done to Nintendo that can be proven and brought to court, the stronger the case gets. So it only gets better over time as these emulators are used, again, almost exclusively to pirate games. And then here's the big one. Here's the one where I went, whoa, no way. Nintendo suggests in its complaint that it may have actually been damaged by Yuzu, alleging that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was illegally downloaded over 1 million times in early May, while Yuzu's Patreon membership doubled during that same period. That's insane. Tears of the Kingdom was pirated over 1 million times before release from the early copy leak. And then we can go to the sales of Tears of the Kingdom, where it's like, that's 5%. That's also 5% after over half a year of sales. More than 10 million copies of Tears of the Kingdom were sold in its first 3 days of release. So by the time it came out, like by the first week of sales, 10% of the people like that had the game were pirating it. That's an outrageous number. That also makes me think about how many millions of pirated copies of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Pokemon Sword and Shield, because there's always an early copy, there's always a street date break, and then with the amount of, like, insane amount of hacked Nintendo Switches there are, then we're just going to see a crazy piracy like that. But also 3DS. Pokemon Sun and Moon. Like, how many millions of copies? Because that was the most insane we've ever seen the Pokemon community get over an early copy of a Pokemon game, and then the leaked ROMs and all of that insanity. That, you know, I want to say, like, oh, millions of people pirated it, especially because hacking was already huge on Nintendo 3DS. You kind of sound insane. That many people are actually illegally emulating the Pokemon games? Well, this actually says, yeah, it's an insane amount of piracy. It's only been more since then, so, like, again, now we're talking about 2 million, potentially, or even more. Flashback to Valve hastily pulling a video that showed Yuzu loaded onto a Steam Deck. That's not good. So, legal emulation or no, Yuzu may not want to risk finding out in the court of law. Many small bands of developers have axed their products after being approached by Nintendo. So yeah, the Nintendo ninjas come in, they say, we're taking you to court unless you know, get shut down, hand everything over. This is probably going to need a settlement for the millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions in lost revenue from Yuzu's existence. So it wouldn't be surprising if Yuzu settled. And that is the problem. We're seeing a lot of these emulators settle instead of getting like a major court precedent. And that would also be like really bad for the hacking community if Nintendo like just won. So that way you don't have this like, you know, 25-year-old precedent where it's like, well, the Sony thing makes emulation legal. And then Nintendo comes in, goes all out against like the major perpetrators, like, actually no, this has been illegal, especially with like all the modern stuff going on, because it is used for piracy in 99% of cases. So I'd say the claim here is enough to get a reasonable emulator company to cease, desist, and settle. But remember, that's only one side of the story at present. Yuzu didn't immediately respond to requests for its side of the story. Team released Yuzu for Android last May. Is Yuzu going to make a stand for the piracy community, or are they going to fold like everyone else and try to scrape out with whatever little money they've had from their development, Patreon, and other support? Like, there's no way they can stand up to Nintendo lawyers in court. But then we're going to see all these losers defending emulation and piracy going, well, Nintendo only wins because they have more money and better lawyers, even though it should be legal. Nintendo's case is looking really strong, especially with the numbers, where it's like you can actually point to a very large amount of players actually pirating the game because of how prevalent piracy has gotten. Shows like the major issue that like all those everyone, any like legitimate person, that they've always said, yeah, pretty much everyone is using this just to pirate games or hack their games to cheat and do unauthorized modding and stuff. So now, like, we're seeing numbers and stuff. Yeah, it's going to be a strong case and some interesting stuff. And this is what I've been wanting to see. So, like, more lawsuits from Nintendo, please. And eventually we'll get, like, the big precedent and this gets shut down and we can enjoy games again. And that'd be pretty awesome. So, hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.